Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Everyday Health Stories, the podcast where we explore the fascinating world of medical science through the power of storytelling. Each week, we bring you compelling science and simple strategies that can help you take control of your health one step at a time. If this is your first time joining us, hit pause for a moment and click on follow or subscribe, depending on where you're listening. That way, you'll get notified of new episodes, gain access to exclusive content, and join a community that's making positive changes, one story at a time. Dr. Reddy, today we're diving into something that might completely change how you think about memory loss and cognitive decline. The surprising fact that nearly half of all dementia cases may be influenced by factors we can actually treat.
That's right. A lot of people assume memory loss is just part of getting older, or that it's all in your genes, but new research is showing that's not the full story. In fact, scientists have identified 14 factors that can actually be changed or treated, and they play a big role in whether or not someone develops cognitive issues. And the best part? It's never too late to start working on them. Even small changes can lead to meaningful improvements in brain health.
Wow, that's such a powerful idea, that almost half of cognitive decline could be linked to things we can actually do something about. That really changes how we think about aging and memory. How did researchers come to this discovery?
It really is a game changer. This insight comes from years of research, including the work of Dr. Mukaila Raji and his team at the University of Texas Medical Branch. They found that around 45% of dementia cases are linked to factors we can actually do something about, with the right medical care and simple lifestyle changes. That means nearly half of cases may be preventable or at least delayable, which is an incredible opportunity for all of us.
That's an incredible statistic. Can you tell us more about Dr. Raji's research?
Dr. Raji's work is part of a major 5-year study funded by the National Institute on Aging. What makes his approach stand out is how he combines hands-on clinical experience with large-scale health data. His team looked at records from over 2 million Medicare patients, and what they found was striking. People who had regular thorough health checkups were much more likely to have these treatable risk factors spotted and managed before their memory or thinking really started to decline.
So what exactly are these 14 factors that contribute to cognitive decline?
Let me walk through them, as understanding these factors could be life-changing for many of our listeners. The first group relates to cardiovascular health. This includes hypertension or high blood pressure, which damages the delicate blood vessels in the brain over time. Even moderately elevated blood pressure in midlife increases dementia risk by about 50%.
50%? That's very significant. What else falls into this cardiovascular category?
Diabetes is another major factor. When blood sugar is poorly controlled, it causes inflammation and oxidative stress that can damage brain cells. Studies show that people with type 2 diabetes have a 60% higher risk of developing dementia compared to those without diabetes.
I had no idea the connection was that strong.
Many people don't realize it. The third cardiovascular factor is high cholesterol, particularly in midlife, which contributes to the formation of amyloid plaques in the brain, one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease.
Are there other cardiovascular factors beyond these three?
Yes, the fourth factor is obesity, especially when there's extra fat around the belly. That kind of fat doesn't just sit there, it actually sends out chemicals that cause inflammation in the body, and some of those can reach the brain and harm brain cells over time. The fifth factor is something called atrial fibrillation, or AFib for short. It's a type of irregular heartbeat that many people don't even know they have, but it can quietly reduce the amount of blood and oxygen getting to the brain by as much as 30%, even if the person never has a stroke. And that lack of steady blood flow can really affect memory and brain function.
That's fascinating. I understand there's a real-life story that illustrates this connection.
Yes, Dr. Raji shared the case of Margaret, a 68-year-old retired teacher who came to his clinic with complaints of increasing forgetfulness and difficulty concentrating. Her family had noticed she was having trouble following conversations and remembering recent events. Initially, everyone, including Margaret, assumed these were just normal signs of aging.
What did Dr. Raji discover?
During her evaluation, he found that Margaret had undiagnosed atrial fibrillation that she wasn't even aware of. Further testing revealed this condition had been reducing blood flow to her brain by approximately 30%. Once they started her on appropriate treatment for the atrial fibrillation, including blood thinners and medication to control her heart rhythm, her cognitive symptoms began to improve within months.
That's remarkable. So treating the heart condition actually helped her brain function.
Right. Margaret's story is a great example of how fixing certain health issues, ones we can actually do something about, can really help with memory and thinking. Now, aside from heart-related issues, there's another group of factors people often overlook. Problems with our senses, like hearing and vision.
How do sensory issues affect cognition?
Most people don't realize just how big of a role hearing plays in brain health. Hearing loss is number 6 on our list, and it's linked to about a 24% higher risk of memory and thinking problems. When you can't hear clearly, your brain has to use extra energy just to figure out what people are saying, which means there's less brain power available for things like remembering or focusing. On top of that, people with hearing loss often start pulling away from conversations or social activities, and that kind of isolation can make things even worse for the brain.
And what about vision problems?
That brings us to number 7, vision problems. When eyesight issues go untreated, they don't just affect how well you see, they can also limit how much your brain gets stimulated. If you're struggling to read, drive, or recognize faces, you're not using your brain the way you normally would, and that can speed up mental decline. What's really interesting is that studies have found cataract surgery, a pretty routine and low-risk procedure, can actually lower the risk of dementia by about 29%. That's a big impact from something relatively simple.
Wow, just the fact that cataract surgery could lower dementia risk by nearly 30% is incredible. I wouldn't have expected something so routine to make such a difference. What other factors should we be paying attention to?
The 8th factor is depression, and it's a big one. Depression doesn't just affect your mood, it actually changes the way the brain works over time. It causes long-term inflammation and throws off your body's stress hormones, which can damage brain health. People with depression have up to a 65% higher risk of developing dementia later on, which shows just how important it is to take mental health seriously.
That's a significant increase. Is depression treatment effective at reducing this risk?
Yes, and this is actually one of the most encouraging parts of Dr. Raji's research. His team found that when depression was properly recognized and treated, whether with therapy, medication, or both, people's memory and thinking often improved. In some cases, what looked like early dementia completely went away once the depression was addressed. That really shows how powerful mental health treatment can be for protecting the brain.
Can you share one of those cases?
One powerful example was a 72-year-old man named Robert. He had lost his wife about 6 months earlier, and his kids started noticing he was becoming forgetful, withdrawn, and having trouble managing day-to-day tasks. Naturally, they were worried it might be the beginning of dementia. Initial tests did point to mild cognitive decline, but after a deeper look, it turned out Robert was dealing with untreated depression. Once he started a treatment plan that included both therapy and medication, things began to turn around. Within 3 months, his memory scores were back in the normal range, and more importantly, he was back to living independently and reconnecting with life again.
That's amazing. Just think, everyone assumed it was dementia, but it was actually untreated depression. It really shows how important it is to look deeper. So what's the 9th factor we should know about?
The 9th factor is social isolation, and it's surprisingly powerful. It can raise the risk of dementia by around 50%. As human beings, we're wired for connection. Having regular, meaningful interactions isn't just good for the heart. It actually keeps the brain active and engaged. When people become isolated, especially as they get older, they lose out on the kind of mental and emotional stimulation that helps protect brain health.
I can imagine the pandemic made this even worse. So many older adults were suddenly cut off from their families and routines. That kind of isolation must have taken a serious toll.
It definitely did. Dr. Raji's team actually saw faster cognitive decline in older adults who became isolated during the pandemic. But here's the hopeful part. They also found that seniors who stayed connected, whether through video calls, phone check-ins, or safe in-person visits, were much better protected. Staying socially engaged really made a difference.
What about sleep? I know that's crucial for brain health.
You're exactly right. Sleep is the 10th factor on our list. Sleep disorders, especially sleep apnea, can seriously affect brain health. When you don't get enough deep, restful sleep, your brain doesn't have a chance to clear out waste and toxins that build up during the day. Research shows that treating sleep apnea can actually slow down cognitive decline by as much as 10% each year, which is a big deal when it comes to protecting memory over time.
That's a big impact, just from improving sleep. So what are the last few factors we should know about?
The 11th factor is not getting enough physical activity. Regular exercise doesn't just help the heart, it also boosts blood flow to the brain and encourages the release of natural chemicals that help brain cells grow and stay healthy. The 12th is drinking too much alcohol. It can directly damage brain cells and also interfere with how your body absorbs important nutrients, which can make memory and thinking problems even worse.
That really puts things into perspective. So many everyday habits can quietly affect our brain health. And we're almost at the end of the list, right?
Yes, we're down to the last two. Number 13 is smoking. Most people know it's bad for the lungs and heart, but it also harms the blood vessels that supply the brain. When those vessels are damaged, it affects how well the brain gets oxygen and nutrients, which can speed up cognitive decline. And finally, number 14, medication side effects. Certain drugs, especially some older antihistamines, sleep aids, and medications like benzodiazepines, can interfere with memory and thinking, particularly in older adults. Even some over-the-counter meds that seem harmless can have a cumulative effect on brain function over time. So it's important to regularly review medications with your doctor, especially if memory problems start to show up.
This is incredibly helpful. So many of these factors aren't talked about enough. But I'm curious, do these risks just add up separately? Or do they somehow affect each other and make things worse?
Great question, and yes, they absolutely interact. These factors don't just stack up one by one, they can actually make each other worse. For example, someone with high blood pressure, diabetes, and sleep apnea isn't just at triple the risk, they're at significantly higher risk because those conditions compound each other's effects on the brain. The good news is, it works the other way too. When we start treating multiple factors together, like improving sleep, managing blood sugar, and supporting mental health, we often see bigger improvements than we'd get by addressing just one issue at a time. It's like lifting a fog off the brain layer by layer.
Can you share a case that demonstrates this compounding effect?
One case that really stands out involved a 65-year-old college professor named James. He came in because his memory was slipping to the point that it was affecting his teaching, and he was worried it might be the early signs of dementia. After doing a thorough evaluation, we discovered that James had 5 different treatable issues all working against him. His blood pressure was too high, he had undiagnosed sleep apnea, some hearing loss, low vitamin B12 levels, and he was also on medications that can interfere with thinking and memory.
That's quite a combination. What happened when these were addressed?
His medical team came together and built a clear step-by-step plan. They adjusted his blood pressure meds, started him on CPAP therapy to treat the sleep apnea, got him fitted for hearing aids, gave him B12 injections, and carefully reviewed and changed the medications that were affecting his thinking. The results were remarkable. Within just 6 months, his memory scores improved by over 30%, and he was back to teaching with confidence. It was a complete turnaround just by tackling several treatable issues at once.
Stories like James's really give me hope. It shows that memory loss doesn't always have to be a one-way road. For listeners who are wondering what they can do next, where's the best place to start?
The first step I'd recommend is getting a full health checkup that looks at all 14 of these risk factors. If you're on Medicare, the annual wellness visit is a great chance to do this. It's covered, and it can catch things early. Second, don't brush off memory issues as just getting older. Sometimes they are, but often they're tied to something that can actually be treated. And finally, make sure you're working with a healthcare provider who looks at the whole picture, not just the brain, but your heart, your sleep, your mood, your medications. That kind of holistic approach can make a big difference in keeping your mind sharp.
Are there specific tests people should ask for?
Yes. And beyond the usual memory tests, it's really helpful to ask for more in-depth lab work. That includes checking things like blood sugar, cholesterol, vitamin levels, especially B12, vitamin D, and folate, along with thyroid function and markers of inflammation. Depending on your health history, your doctor might also recommend a sleep study, hearing and vision tests, or even a heart checkup. These extra steps can uncover hidden issues that might be quietly affecting your brain.
And what about prevention? For listeners who aren't experiencing memory problems right now, but want to stay sharp as they age, what can they start doing today to protect their brain health?
Prevention really is powerful. One of the best things you can do is stay physically active. A mix of cardio, like walking or swimming, and strength training has the strongest evidence for protecting the brain. When it comes to food, keeping it simple goes a long way. Focus on eating whole foods, nothing heavily processed. If you can eat it raw, great. If not, go for boiled or steamed instead of fried, grilled, or baked. That kind of eating reduces inflammation, which is one of the biggest drivers of cognitive decline. And don't overlook the basics. Good sleep, managing stress, and staying socially connected all play a big role. Finally, keep up with regular checkups to track things like blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol. Catching those issues early can help you stay mentally sharp for years to come.
This perspective feels so much more hopeful than what we usually hear about memory loss. Instead of feeling helpless, it's empowering to know there are real steps we can take to protect our brain.
Exactly. And that's what makes Dr. Raji's work so powerful. It shifts the conversation from "there's nothing we can do" to "there's so much we can do." We may not be able to prevent every case of dementia, but by addressing these 14 factors, we could potentially prevent or delay almost half of them. That's not just numbers. That's millions of people holding on to their independence and families being spared the pain of seeing someone they love slowly fade away.
Dr. Reddy, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. Learning that we can actually prevent or even reverse memory issues by tackling these 14 factors really gives us a hopeful and practical roadmap for protecting our brains. Thank you for breaking down such a complex topic in a way that's clear, empowering, and so easy to understand.
It's been a pleasure, Anna. Cognitive health is one of the most exciting and fast-moving areas in medicine right now, but at the heart of it, the message is simple. A lot of what affects our brain is actually within our control. So I'd encourage everyone listening to pick just one thing from today's list, whether it's getting your hearing checked, improving your sleep, or managing your blood pressure, and start there. Even small, consistent changes can go a long way in protecting your memory and mental clarity for years to come.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Everyday Health Stories. We hope this episode has sparked your curiosity about the treatable factors that influence brain health and memory. Don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into the cutting edge of health and wellness. If you found this discussion intriguing, please share it with anyone concerned about cognitive health or caring for someone with memory issues.
As always, the information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making significant changes to your health regimen or addressing specific cognitive concerns.
Until next time, take care of your brain by tackling even just one of these modifiable factors, and keep staying curious about all the ways you can support your cognitive health for the long run. Bye for now.